Good morning, members of the media and of our viewing public. Welcome to our regular Sunday morning news conference. On my left is my colleague, MP for the MP Rudal Munilal, and I'm the MP for Naparima, Rodney Charles. I will speak first, followed by my colleague, after which we will take questions. Before I begin, let me clear the air on one issue in the public domain. And let me state for the record that I am Rodney Atchison Desmond Charles, and none of these names derive from my African heritage. Nevertheless, I am a proud Trinbagonian of African descent. More than 50 years ago, at the height of the Black Power movement, I immersed myself in the writings of Malcolm X, C.L.R. James, our own Stokely Carmichael, who later became known as Kwame Ture, Makandal Daga, Frank Spanner, Walter Rodney, Muhammad Ali, and others. I came to the conclusion that while I respected the views of others, I was comfortable with my names, which must have reflected the realities of slavery in the United States, given my American heritage on my father's side, and Barbados and Antigua from my mother's genealogy. So for me, I am comfortable in my skin. The issue now in the public domain is, for me, a P&M distraction from such things as the pedophile ring allegations, the OAS fiasco, which my colleague will deal with, the AG matter, which is in the front page of the today's Express, and also the myriad of issues bedeviling our once prosperous Trinidad and Tobago. Issues like persistent poverty, high on and underemployment, social disintegration, foreign exchange shortages, daily retrenchments, increased social inequalities, and escalating crime. The P&M would wish to detain me on the inconsequential matters which do not impact my quality of life or my well-being. I am a conscious, self-confident, and focused citizen who prefers to concentrate on how I can assist my fellow countrymen to be as wealthy, safe, and self-assured as my friends from Singapore, Canada, and elsewhere. Today, I will deal with one of those issues which the P&M does not want us to concentrate on, and that is the scourge of crime. In particular, the new variants of home invasions, especially those homes belonging to the elderly, and also car thefts. Today, I want to challenge Dr. Rowley, mano a mano, to tell this country his strategic and tactical stroke operational plans and policies to deal with the crisis of increased home invasions. It is clear, Dr. Rowley, that you have no plan to deal with escalating crime. You never had. When challenged to outline your crime reduction policies, you create distractions. You bully persons asking valid questions. You hide behind the power you wield in Parliament. Give me your parliamentary majority. So, you amend the standing orders at will to give you unlimited time to hoodwink the population in an environment that allows only one very short question. Like all bullies, you are mortally afraid of the opposition. Dr. Rowley, it seems as if you are afraid of me. So when I speak in Parliament, you come after, knowing full well that I cannot respond in the same news cycle after having spoken. The UNC is not afraid of you and your minions, Dr. Rowley. Certainly, I am not. And my friend and colleague, he is not also. We will never be afraid. Your cabinets have had members on the radar of the TTPS who have never fully answered questions relating to bank deposits. have been involved in questionable non-disclosure arrangements, and now an Attorney General who a Miami court on May 2nd ordered, according to today's Express, and I'm quoting here, the court has ordered that he be disqualified from representing Trinidad and Tobago in civil proceedings in the US relating to charges arising from alleged fraud and corruption in the Piarco Airport project. Not me talking, the Express. I leave the matter to our lawyers, right? I leave that matter to our lawyers, who are in a better position to assess the impact of that decision. No wonder we remain the only CARICOM country on an EU blacklist for shortcomings, including being a haven for money laundering. No wonder why an EU trade minister has called us, our government, Dr. Rowley's government, a nook of shame. So here are some questions, Dr. Rowley. Answer them, not under the cover of parliamentary privilege. First question. Are you aware that gang members are much younger, violent, and increasingly more transnational compared to when you came in office, and that they are now focusing on home invasions? Second question, Dr. Rowley. Are you mindful that with limited employment opportunities and non-existent sporting facilities and sporting competitions, youth see gang leaders often as the only successful role models in their communities? 3, are you knowledgeable of the fact that your education system is in tatters, with high drop-off rates, demotivated teachers, and an outdated curricula in schools that are essentially pipelines to our prisons for most? 4, do you know that your government spends over $5 billion annually to lock up citizens in the area of crime suppression, and less than 5% of our annual budgets on critical areas of crime rehabilitation and crime prevention? 5, do you know that your Minister of National Security is a national laughingstock and a monumental failure, and is largely responsible for our out-of-control crime today? 6, are you cognizant of the fact that the only 2 growth industries in Trinidad and Tobago since you came into office are private security services and funeral homes? 7, do you not feel ashamed of the fact that the World Population Review website rated Trinidad and Tobago as having the 6th highest crime rate in the world, above Jamaica, Brazil, and El Salvador? 8, are you not dismayed by the fact that under your watch, our murder rate is on track to exceed 600 murders for the current year, the highest ever in our history? 9, are you mindful of the fact that Trinidad and Tobago has 10,000 police officers for a population of 1.4 million, while Toronto, comparatively, has half as much police officers with twice the population, and they only had 105 homicides in 2020? And 10, the 10th question, Dr. Rowley. Dr. Rowley, under your watch, citizens, especially the elderly, do not feel safe, even in the sanctity of their own homes. They exist at the mercy of criminals, with no police presence on month ends when they go to the banks to cash their pensions. Dr. Rowley, in case you are unaware, here are a sample of home invasions in recent times. Maybe you do not get the news from your friends, financiers, and sundry oligarchs who surround you. Here are some examples taken from the media. May 27, UE lecturer and family attacked during home invasion in El Dorado. Home invasion. May 25th, 64-year-old man assaulted during home invasion in Aranguez. May 24th, prison officer shot outside home in St. Joseph. May 20th, elderly couple 64 and 69 attacked at home in Wallafield. All elderly, all targeted, all in their homes. May 20th, 19-year-old man shot and killed at home in Chaguanas. May 19th, 19-year-old shot and killed outside his home in Pinal. May 6th, 61-year-old robbed and assaulted in driveway in Charfleur. April 28th, Venezuelan shot and killed in his yard in Couva. April 28th, 57-year-old man fatally shot in home invasion, Eccles Village. Now, stolen cars, they're endless. I won't detain us on the number of cars and the places where they are stolen. So I ask the question, are you not ashamed of this data, Dr. Rowley? All gathered in the months of April and May under your watch, under the gaze of your incompetent Minister of National Security. Your performance on crime is not only shocking, it is disgraceful, it is scandalous, it is deplorable, it is mind-boggling, and certainly we are better than this, Dr. Rowley. You have children in state-run institutions at the mercy of criminals and pedophiles, and you waiting on a report to act. When a man is assaulted in his home and humiliated in front of his wife and children, he is unable to command the respect of his family. Imagine your wife being beaten in your home and your children crying, and you as their protector can do nothing but watch. I want Dr. Rowley to listen to the story of Wayne Bowen, a 69-year-old farmer from Wallafield, who less than 3 weeks ago was hogtied, beaten with a stainless steel pot, sprayed with insecticide, and set on fire for $5,500 and a gold ring. According to Mr. Bowen, this was the second encounter with bandits at his home. The first took place on April 22nd, and still shaken by the second encounter, he lamented, and I quote what he told, I think it was Newsday: "What is happening in this farming community is not predial larceny. It is robbery with violence. We are under siege by criminal elements who have been making our lives a living hell." That is Mr. Bowen's comment. These are farmers who feed our population and pay taxes that ensure your index pension, Dr. Rowley, for life. I asked Dr. Rowley, why frequent police patrols are not occurring in Wallafield? Why not daily roadblocks? Why are our police supervised watch groups not established for farmers? Can CCTVs not be installed along key roads in Wallafield, given the importance of food security now to our survival? I therefore call on Dr. Rowley to immediately conduct a performance appraisal on his Minister of National Security, who appears to be collecting monthly salaries under false pretenses, given his dismal record. I want Dr. Rowley to give Hines specific, measurable, realistic, and time-framed performance targets related to his job description. For example, police response times of less than 25 minutes throughout Trinidad and Tobago by December this year. Another example, improved detection rates to 50% for murders in each division by the end of 2023. Establish well-founded police youth clubs in each police division and scout troops attached to all schools in high-risk areas by the end of this year. And you increase the budgets for cadets, for police youth clubs. You increase their budget allocation this year or next year to at least 125 million. not 4 million that you give to the cadets today. Take it from the underperforming SSA's 300 million plus annual allocation. We're getting nothing for the SSA. Take that money and put it for the young children so that we remove the pipeline to the prisons that exists as we speak. Call on Dr. Rowley to set up functional, technology-linked, police-embedded neighborhood watch groups in all risk communities by the end of this year. They keep telling us we never come with solutions. Well, here I'm telling him, I'm giving him the blueprint, but he doesn't listen to the opposition. He doesn't listen to Rodney Charles. Establish in collaboration with the Ministry of Agriculture fully equipped predial larceny units with response time targets of 30 minutes max, and do that in a 10-month time frame. Do that in Wallerfield. Do it today. Do it now. We are paying you to achieve that. Develop within 2 years systems such as exist in the United States, Canada, and other places where motor vehicle license plates cannot be easily replicated and are dedicated to a specific vehicle. So that when a vehicle comes in front of you on the park and you call the police and say PDP 4873, the police could go and they know that is owned by X. He lives there and they know the description of the vehicle. Today I could buy a license plate, any plate, and put it on any vehicle. So it makes a mockery of reporting to the police that intelligence, that bit of information. So we say dedicated license plates to facilitate rapid tracing of vehicles used in committing crimes. And we said to Dr. Rowley, if in the set time frames Minister Hines cannot deliver on these and other targets, or if he cannot show measurable improvements, he should, Singapore style, be fired immediately. You notice, Dr. Rowley, that when you take my advice, such as going to Guyana, results follow. So take my advice now and man up to your responsibilities in crime. In conclusion, your first and foremost job is to provide for our safety and security. These cannot be achieved merely by browbeating, bullying, finger pointing, abrasive comments, intimidatory behavior, and forceful presentation of one-sided cherry-picked facts, as you did last Friday in Parliament, telling me that I do not like CARICOM citizens, when my mother was born in the Garden St. James in Barbados, and my grandfather, Sidney Sampson, was born in Antigua, in the Hobbiton estate. When my two children are Barbadian grandchildren, two grandchildren are Barbadian dual citizens. When my other two grandchildren are English citizens, and you tell me I am xenophobic. Nonsense, Dr. Rowley. So these cannot be achieved, we say, by browbeating. It has not worked, is not working, and never will. The time has come to level with the population. Give us the facts. Outline crime-fighting plans that make sense and are informed by data. I want to tell Dr. Rowley, badgerism, temper tantrums, blaming past governments, and appointments such as Fitzgerald Hines will never work. We now have a recently appointed AG who has to waste time explaining away many allegations. But I leave that tomorrow in the virtual meeting for detailed clarification of this issue. Do you whistle, Dr. Rowley? Do you wish to go down in history as the Prime Minister under whose watch Trinidad and Tobago became a failed state? We seem inexorably headed towards imminent failed state status, saved temporarily by cyclical increases in energy prices. Deliver for Trinidad and Tobago or resign, Dr. Rowley. The choice is yours. I thank you, and I now hand you over to my colleague, the member for Oropouche East, and Member of Parliament Rudal Munilan.
Thank you. Thank you very much, MP Rodney Charles, for the very comprehensive and enlightening presentation on the crisis that faces us as far as security is concerned. It is, of course, a burning issue facing the country, and you have brought, of course, revealing data and information as to the crisis we face. Good morning to all listeners and viewers of this weekly press conference hosted at the Office of the Leader of the Opposition in Port of Spain, Trinidad, where we seek to bring some of the issues to the attention of the public, pursuant to our own objective of informing the public on the crisis that we face in Trinidad and Tobago at this time. This morning, I would be dealing with two issues. One, the continuing debacle and saga involving the ruling of the London Court of Arbitration on the OS NIDCO matter. And secondly, a matter that has just erupted within hours in Trinidad and Tobago, namely the continuing blight associated with the construction of the Port of Spain Central Block at the Port of Spain General Hospital facility. That has taken a new twist that suggests that that project is blight, that project is mismanaged, and there may be further evidence of corruption associated with that project. And of course, I just wanted to pinpoint this morning the headline that Mr. Charles already referred to, which is a very, very gloomy, scandalous state of affairs, where it appears from the reading of this document and the reading of this article that among the very task, the very first task of the new Attorney General, who came to the Parliament with some fanfare, among the first task of this Attorney General is to, at best, mislead a Miami court as to his participation in a matter. I will not go into detail on this, but I assure you that tomorrow night I invite all viewers and listeners to tune in. Tune in very early at 7 p.m. Organize your tea and coffee and get before a computer or television and listen to this. There are more issues related to this that we expect to put in the public domain, and Mrs. Kamla Prasad Bissessa herself, I believe, is qualified to deal with this matter with the forensic precision that is required to understand what has happened here. All I could say on reading this for now is that I never know how junior could become senior and how senior could become junior. I say no more on this. I say no more on this. But tomorrow night, the Monday night forum of the UNC, Mrs. Kamla Prasad Bissessa and other speakers will continue dealing with the current affairs. But this matter, I believe, should have a prime place in our dialogue tomorrow with the national community. On Friday last, the Prime Minister came to the Parliament, as he's wont to do, and sought to use his majority, again, with monotonous frequency, to change the rules of the Parliament to allow him to speak forever. Now, the drafters of our standing orders, we should have a copy somewhere, provide that when a minister makes a statement, you are allotted 10 minutes. Because it is felt that a minister can use 10 minutes effectively to communicate a policy matter. That is meant to be a policy matter. 10 minutes is provided for. In fact, Con Embert, who was on the standing order committee and so on over many years with myself and others, we agreed to that, 10 minutes. Because it is not meant to be a debate. Because in a ministerial statement, you are not meant to talk forever because there is no debate. The opposition in this case has no right of reply. You cannot engage matters. So it is felt that 10 minutes is sufficient for that. The Prime Minister used his majority in the Parliament to waive, to cancel, to throw out a standing order, to allow him to speak forever. In fact, he could have been speaking there all now. They would have allowed that because there was no time limit. This by itself speaks to the erosion of our democracy. It speaks to the erosion of the worth of the parliament. But they do it. In any event, the Prime Minister came to talk about this Point Fortin Highway and the OAS ruling. I want to remind the national community, and I will remind you so long as I'm awake. Because if on Monday the 16th of May I was asleep, the country would not have known of this ruling. In fact, up to now, nobody would know. I can assure you. Luckily, I did not take my regular sleepy time tea. And I awoke early, organized myself, and came into Port of Spain with this document in my hand. This, incidentally, is the full arbitration ruling, the full book, so to speak, 305 pages more or less. Had the opposition not raised this matter in Parliament, this country will never know about it. Never. This was buried. It was covered up at the Prime Minister's office under a carpet somewhere. They may have lifted up the wood in the flooring, tuck it in inside and cover it back with carpet, and they left it there. When the opposition raised this matter, on that evening the government was in shock. They said nothing. Their approach was, we heard nothing, we see nothing, we say nothing. It took the Prime Minister 10 days later to address his mind to this matter, and then in 10 days he blamed the last government for what happened 7 years ago. He took 10 days to blame for 7 years ago. So let the population know that had it not been for the United National Congress, no one would have known of this ruling. Absolutely no one. In fact, many members of the cabinet did not know of this. But the Prime Minister came and he made a statement in the Parliament, and I have excerpts of it here. I have, incidentally, just for the record, when I move with my full documents. This is actually his statement here. The statement printed is 24 pages. I want to deal with a couple matters here in this statement. Let me begin by saying that if ever, in the cricketing analogy if ever a batsman with one ball could be caught and stumped with one ball, it is the OAS. Rowley was caught and stumped, and it could happen with one ball, and that was called the OAS. The Prime Minister, having been stumped and bowled, came to Parliament and in the most miraculous way sought to talk about the ruling by taking little pieces of excerpts here and there to knit together with an Emailgate type James Bond narrative. He brought that as well. I mean, I saw this in movies. I used to see this thing in movies of secret jets flying to unknown destinations and people moving from one city to another in unmarked vehicles, and maybe they put on headpieces to disguise. I saw that in the movies. Typical with his Emailgate scandal of a few years ago, he came to the Parliament with that rubbish. Now he came to the Parliament really to tell us about a secret meeting using private jet in a hotel room, Michelangelo hotel room or Mona Lisa hotel room or something like that. He came to the Parliament to tell us about that. And what he did not tell us, and I just use one example because I intend to speak tomorrow as well on this matter. The Prime Minister said in his statement, and I'm quoting here from his statement, he says, basically all works stopped on the troubled highway. At that time, abandoned workers were protesting daily. Subcontractors were claiming hundreds of millions of dollars owed to them by the absent OAS. The OAS abandoned the project. This is what he put on the parliamentary record. Friends, I will just look at one matter here dealing with that, dealing with abandonment. In the ruling on this matter, page 82 I'm at in the ruling, it says here, the parties differ of course in how this acknowledged quote unquote slowdown is to be characterized. For NIDCO, the slowdown was evidence of abandonment, but for the OAS, the slowdown was contractually permitted. Now there was a fundamental difference. Work had continued on that highway. the contractor slowed down the work because they were not being paid. They were owed 161 million TT dollars and were not being paid. So they slowed down the work, which was permitted by contract. The ruling of the arbitration, page 88 now, it says here, thus the tribunal rejects NIDCO's contention that the suspension notices were defective and find that OS's acknowledged slowdown did not constitute an abandonment of the works. Could you imagine page 88? The tribunal said that their slowdown did not constitute abandonment. The Prime Minister goes and put in the public record that NIDCO OS abandoned the project. You see what's happening here? That you could say that in Parliament because nobody could sue you there. But you can't say that outside. I dare the Prime Minister come outside on a public platform and accuse the OS of abandoning that project. He will be in the courthouse again. But you see, for this government, as I said before with the AG matter, there's a trend occurring, and the lawyers are telling us there's a pattern emerging here where this government and or its agent are prepared to go and lie in courthouse. And this is not the first time. There was another matter, civil matter in a Florida court involving businessmen where the government was prepared to lie. And the judge in that case threw out a matter. I will speak about that in days to come as well. But they go to the court now and with monotonous frequency, they're lying. And this is why nobody trusts them. On the matter of trust, could I make another issue for you? A new issue. Do you know during the tribunal hearings, when millions and tens of millions of dollars have been paid, and we will come to that as well, we will name the lawyers, we will ask to account for how much money was paid. The government made an undertaking. I'm at page 11 of the same document, page 11. This thing here, if you go through, you could get press conference for about 2 years. Page 11, I read this to you now. Second, the tribunal requests the government to update the tribunal on their position as far as it deals with undertakings to honor an award in the event that the tribunal decide to render one. Meaning in the sense, if the tribunal decide to give money to one party or another, we want an undertaking from you that you will honor it. Okay, no problem. What has happened here, page 14 I am now, the lawyer for the state was called the first respondent. The second respondent, sorry. The first respondent is NIDCO, which is a state agency. The second respondent, for a time, they argued that they were not properly before the proceedings, but that's a legal issue. Hear this part. Listen attentively. The lawyer is saying to the tribunal at page 14, now anybody could get this and read it. Huh? So if I am in any way misleading or misinterpreting, I can be corrected. Accordingly, I am authorized to say that the second respondent, meaning the government, is willing without prejudice to its primary contention that it is not a party to the proceedings and so on. The second respondent, the government, is willing to provide an undertaking to the claimant, meaning OS, to honor any award which may be made against the first respondent, NIDCO, in these proceedings, in the event that the tribunal were to decide to render one to the value of the bonds now held by the first respondent, meaning NIDCO. You know, they made a commitment, an undertaking to the tribunal to honor any ruling, to pay. The Prime Minister announced on Friday they are going to the court now to attempt to set aside. They cannot be trusted in Port of Spain, San Fernando, Point Fortin, or in London. You cannot trust them anywhere. You just can't trust them. They made an undertaking by their lawyers that they will honor whatever ruling, whatever comes out here, and so on. You know, immediately they dishonor their own undertaking. This is a government that cannot be trusted. When we raise these issues, there's another narrative Dr. Rowley is coming with, you know, and I want to put that to bed. The UNC is in favor of contractor and we are not in favor of the taxpayer and so on. Let me put it clear. The People's Partnership, the government of Kamla Persad-Bissessar, the United National Congress, has always been in favor of workers. Of workers. We recognize that if there are no employer, there can be no employee. If you close down every company in the country, who will work? Where they will work? How will they make a living? How will income circulate? We have always been in favor of workers. That is why when we were there, we completed 134 collective agreements for workers in this country. We completed that because Kamla Prasad Bisesa and her administration stand on the side of workers. So when you deliberately sabotage OAS, you do not pay them the 161 million. They slow down the work and therefore could not continue. You wrongfully terminated. Who benefits here? It is the workers who are not at the brunt of this. The government went and grabbed the money, calling the bonds. They grabbed it from a bank. And that's the next story for our next press conference. But at the end of the day, it was the contractor workers, the subcontractor workers, all the people at different levels of a construction project who were without job, who were without income, who were without a means of earning a living. And we stand on their side. So when Rowley comes and says the UNC on the side of contractor, we are not on the side of contractor, we are on the side of workers. This is why when we were there, we increased our employment by over 100,000 people. They have fired more than 100,000 people. We are always on the side. The UNC is born out of a working class struggle. We are the product of a working class movement. So we are always on the side of workers. So when we argue today in this matter, we are on the side of workers, of subcontractors, of small employers. Because they make it. When you have a mega construction project, you will be amazed how much small contractors get employment. And each of them hire 5 or 10 people. So when you crash a project like this, you put thousands and thousands of families on the breadline. So he came now and he says, like an email gate affair, we want to, and he goes back to the addendum. It is here, this addendum was done so that the government of Trinidad and Tobago could protect itself. In fact, the tribunal recognized that the purpose of the addendum was to de-risk, was to reduce risk. Because the contractor was still performing on the project. They were still working. They had applied for judicial reorganization, but they had never been declared bankrupt. They were still working on this particular project. So what did we do? We went to make an addendum to change scope of works so that they will get some payments. So they will continue working and we will finish the highway. This highway will never be finished under PNM government. Never. It will never. We know that. They cannot finish it. Just as they cannot finish the hospital project, they cannot finish housing, they can build nothing because of their sheer incompetence and corruption. But in this matter I'm coming back to here, the addendum had nothing to do with the reasons for termination. They terminated this on the grounds of abandonment. The ruling said the people never abandoned nothing. So you wrongfully terminated. I asked Rowley today, name the legal advisor. Make available the legal advice to NIDCO to terminate the project, because that lawyer is still serving the public. Well, not serving is a misnomer. That lawyer is still receiving fees for other briefs and other matters. And in a few days we will name that lawyer and his acquaintance in the cabinet. They are still getting taxpayers' money, having given advice to wrongfully terminate a contract that lead to $1 billion loss of the taxpayer. I said on Friday and I say it again, that lawyer, we should get a rope and soft candle and hang him on a tree in Woodford Square. In another country they will do that, not here, of course. But that what do you do to someone like that? They have to answer serious questions in a court of law. Let's talk about UNC having to answer questions. The only time police ask me a question is why we taking so long to get rid of Rowley. The only time they ask question. They have to name the legal advisor, call him to account, get the advice and take action. And it is a scandal if this legal advisor is still collecting money from taxpayer for briefs from this government. So that is one. The Prime Minister speaks of the Commission of Inquiry. Can I tell you, this Commission of Inquiry was appointed more or less July 2019. I could be off by a month or two, but 2019. They have not met yet in public. They have not called one witness. They have not summoned one warm-blood human being. I was part of that on a ministerial team. Nobody write me, asking me about this Commission of Inquiry, if I will appear, if I will bring my briefcase and show documents or anything. You know, Parliament passed in the Finance Bill recently $5 million for this Commission of Inquiry that hasn't met once. When we ask what that money for, they say, what happened? They're reading. They're reading. There's a lot of paper to read. So $5 million is going to give fellas because they're reading some big book. So they need some money to read. $5 million gone. Commission of Inquiry ain't start yet. And now you come to say, well, we want to widen the scope. We want to find out who is responsible for the addendum. The issue is not the addendum. The issue is, why did you wrongfully terminate the contract? You knew the addendum before. You ought to know. Or don't tell me you had no legal advice. Don't tell me you didn't know the addendum was there. Who advised you to wrongfully terminate? That is the issue that we face. The addendum was there. Everybody could see it is in black and white. It was recommended by AECOM, the engineer on the project, which was an American-based company. They were the engineers that recommended those change. And incidentally, to prevent the taxpayer from being exposed to further risk. That is what it was done for. He expands this Commission of Inquiry that took $5 million and hasn't had one meeting yet, and said, no, tell us who I'm bringing that. And then comes with this cock and bull story about South Africa. Minister went South Africa on a private jet, or somebody go on private, meet in a secret hotel, and then in the middle of the night, in dark hours, move hurriedly in an unknown vehicle through the dust and the desert. You know, you see it in these movies. Through the dust and the desert, and go to a hotel, and in some unknown hotel in an unknown town, they met, and then the contractor apparently, found favor later. The OS was recruited by the PNM. When we came into office in May 2010, we had a letter from NIDCO. Where would you believe, days before the election, they declared that OS was the preferred bidder. So when we arrived there, they were the preferred bidder. Had we taken any steps to change that, it would take about 2-3 years to go over that process. The PNM recruited the OS. So you telling us about private jet and so on. That is just a scheme to hide your incompetence and corruption. I want to remind the national community, this is not the only thing. You all remember the partnership. We leased a helicopter for national security. We had to pay every month or quarterly or something money on a lease. The PNM hide it on that Tapolin in Komoto. Never use the helicopter. And then in some quasi hidden deal, which we will uncover, they go on and pay a ton load of money in a New York court to settle a dispute over the non-payment when they refuse to pay. So they refuse to pay for the helicopter. They refuse to pay OS. OS gone with $1 billion now. Helicopter gone with millions of dollars that we don't know yet. But in a few weeks, trust me, in a few weeks we'll have some information on that to share. They go on with the helicopter because they said the helicopter was luxury and the partnership put that for VIP. And if they continue that, they would say we were doing a duck poke or making fish broth on the helicopter in the air, They would say that, if you leave them alone. They are ludicrous. They are ludicrous. They take these things as joke. The chopper was there for national security to transport an emergency in the Caribbean, to be used throughout the Caribbean. For a bandit escape somewhere, a prisoner escape somewhere, you have aerial support for the police. When they locked down that helicopter, do you all know there was a prison break once? They took a civilian helicopter and that crashed. Nearly killed people. A few months ago, remember, there was a shooting on the highway in and around Couva Hospital. Bandits were on the loose. They took civilians to fly a chopper from National Helicopter Services, which is civilian. It's not built for combat and for engaging criminal elements. If the criminal elements had opened fire on that chopper, it would have been a disaster. While they had the chopper, we leased properly. Nobody could take legal action that anything was wrong. And they cover it up under a tarpaulin, hide it away, and hide it from the civil aviation authorities. That is the next one I'll talk about, but not today, as we say. So I want to condemn strongly this use of the Prime Minister by using this James Bond email gate nonsense about secret meetings and secret rendezvous and so. And this suggests that if he's in office, he will do that. For your mind to work like that, it has to be that you contemplate these things, that you would do that, and we will deal with him further on that. I don't want to take too long because, of course, we have some other matters. But on some of these issues, just to remind you, listeners and viewers, we have much more to talk about that. But I am on page I'm on another page of this important ruling, and could the Prime Minister tell us just one issue? There's something called interim payment certificates 50 to 54 and IPC 59. The tune of that is $161 million. Now that is not the performance bond and retention bond. That is what you owe in people. They did work, the work was certified, you didn't pay them. Why did you not pay them in 2016? Why? You should have paid them to avoid this catastrophe today. If you say you're fighting over the bonds, well, fight for the bonds, although you're wrong. But pay off if they had paid the IPCs, interim payment certificates, approved by the engineer. If you had paid that, the highway would have continued, the project would have continued. Today you would not have the suffering of people all over between San Fernando to Point Fortin. The roads would have been fixed, and I mean, as Shadow Minister of Works, I don't want to talk about road, but I don't know in the history of this country if we ever had worse road. I went a couple of days ago to Rio Claro, and I swear to God, one car is 20 feet above the next one. You are driving on a piece of road where one vehicle is, I think, 20 feet above the next one. I mean, that could be a tourist attraction of some kind. I've never seen it in countries in the world. And this is what we have to face with. So, again, my final issue, which I will deal with maybe tomorrow night a bit more. This Blight Hospital project. Could you imagine now having the debacle with Shanghai? And I want to remind you again, because people, have this way of talking. The opposition is there, we're not doing enough, we're not hearing you, we're not seeing you, and so on. It was the opposition that came to the parliament and released an important letter where Shanghai was terminating works. The government never told us that. When we bust the mark in the parliament, Noel Garcia put on a shirt and a pants and rushed into 95.5 to explain. Why you didn't explain before? It was the opposition that exposed that. Today, in a nutshell, I don't want to read extensively from the article today, but in a nutshell, you know what they're saying? They said two people put in bid, but here what happened? It had a glitch, and there was really a third bid, but nobody else had this problem except the third bidder. He had a glitch, and the project on the e-platform, the proposal didn't come in. You know that's where they reached out? So the first two, which you open and you saw the amounts, you would have seen the data for two bidders. A third bidder documents came in late. That company would have already known the contents of the first two bids. Even the third bidder, hypothetically, I cast no aspersions, could have had information on the first two bids. But they are saying that what happened is they already put it on time, but they didn't come in on time because there was a glitch. This deserves a full independent inquiry and investigation. Because there is now the issue that the third bidder appears to have been the successful bidder. So the glitched, whatever it was, didn't make no difference in that sense. But this speaks to a very, very serious matter. I cast no aspersions on anyone, but this speaks to issues of bid rigging. This speaks to issues of improper conduct of procurement. And it may well be that they should reopen this process again. If it is that a glitch occurred and a third bidder came in after the time has gone, but apparently sent it in before the time, but couldn't upload. And this is the kind of controversies this country faces. Enough is enough. We tell the people today, enough is enough. Something got to give. And eventually these issues will form a burden on the back of this government and the back of Rowley, and hopefully with the help of God and the people, we will remove this government in the very, very short term. I thank you, and tomorrow night I repeat some of these issues and much more issues, particularly as it relates to the senior counsel who was junior counsel, or the junior counsel who was senior counsel. These matters will be dealt with tomorrow night, and I encourage all to tune in. Thank you all very much.
All right, y'all. We have some questions.
Yeah.
I know that Sir Charles would have talked, and in one of your suggestions to the Prime Minister, and one jumped out at me that the license plates, dedicated license plates. Now, presently, these license plates are issued by the license authority. So, what you are suggesting would prevent people from doing what they're doing now, going and creating license plates and giving it to people?
Well, my understanding of the way license plates operate in Canada, for example, is done by the state, and no one else can create a license plate. So there would be laws, for example, that if you find equipment in my home for making license plates, I will be jailed for life. Let's say, not necessarily, but you know what I mean. So that therefore, when I see a car and it has a license plate, there is a 99% assurance that the police will go in his vehicle and he presses it and he sees this is owned by Rodney Charles. It is 4 years old. It's a sedan. So and the color is black. So if he sees anything off on that, the color is white or the name, he will probably come and say, Rodney Charles is the owner of this vehicle. Your license plate says that you are Kirk Mayhew. Could you indicate why you are the owner of this vehicle? These things we cannot do now. I could live here and go in Cipero Street and get a license, put it on my vehicle, and we know the problems. So all we are asking is that whatever system exists there, let us study it. We do not have to reinvent the wheel. And we follow that. Because I think that is a major problem in Trinidad and Tobago. I see a vehicle in front, I call the police and say, PDP 48-50. And they cannot happen because 9 out of 10 times, I think, with Angia, with the Bharat girl, the number plates were not valid.
Dr. William, you mentioned that the addendum is not the issue. The issue is why did the government would have fired the contractor. Now, some would say this would be a way to avoid saying who included the addendum, because they just don't want to answer that part.
That's the question?
Yeah.
Oh, the addendum was done by NIDCO on the advice of the engineer. AECOM, I believe it was, an American-based company. So that was done on the advice of engineers and the board of NIDCO. Now, what has happened is, and I could just read something from page 76 of the report. Again, it is here. I call on the Prime Minister. Why, instead of talking forever in the Parliament, why didn't you take this document and just lay it in the Parliament as a public document? So media will not be afraid to quote from it because they may be scared of issues of confidentiality. Lay this, I challenge the Prime Minister. Instead of speaking forever in Parliament, lay this as a public document so the media, the stakeholders, the interested community, the engineering profession can read this and understand themselves. It is in English, you could read. So the Prime Minister will not do that, but he will come in Parliament and give himself unlimited time to talk forever, but will not lay this. And on page 76, I just want to repeat page 76, the clause, the new clause is silent as to accrued rights of termination, and a right to terminate does not fall within the language used. The right to terminate remained unaffected by Addendum 2, page 76. The right to terminate remained unaffected. The addendum had to do with changing the scope of works to ensure we had some payments and allowing them to continue while there was a judicial reorganization, because they were never declared bankrupt and they were working. We seem to forget that the company was working, the project was continuing. The government owed $161 million, which they refused to pay. They refused. So that while the judicial reorganization had continued, and do you know that came to an end too? The judicial reorganization came to an end. The work continued. So we protected the work, we protected the monies. We said no problem at all, they put in the addendum, but the work continued because we wanted the project. We wanted it within cost. And that was the purpose. But the Prime Minister is deliberately, willfully hiding from the fact, apart from hiding the report, they are hiding from the fact who advised you to wrongfully terminate. Let me put it in again. I mean, we love cricket a lot and cricket coming up. If you out LBW, you have to walk. You cannot say 7 years ago they changed the LBW rule, but you're not out. I'm not out. I stay and I want to continue batting. What you going to tell the umpire you want to continue batting? You out. When they raise the finger, you're gone. And if you don't get this finger, you get the next finger. So the Prime Minister cannot say that the addendum led to the loss in the ruling. He cannot say that because you knew that before. Even if the rule had changed, you knew that before. So who advised you to wrongfully terminate the contract? That is the issue. That is the issue, because this thing has nothing to do with bankruptcy. There was no declaration of bankruptcy. Judicial reorganization in Brazilian law had to do with seeking protection for insolvency. To this day, nobody could get a certificate or some paper to say OS was declared bankrupt. The works continued, but they came in with malice, with hate. Everything the partnership did was wrong. We hired the wrong people, we had the wrong contractor, everything was wrong. So they wanted to cancel everything, whether it's helicopter, whether it's highway, whether it's hospital. Let me remind you that Kuva Children's Hospital, it took a pandemic to open that. If there was no COVID, they would not have found the keys. That is malice. The Ramai Trace in the school, I don't want to overbear you now with my problem, but the Ramai Trace in the school, 95% completed, can't finish in 7 years. That's malice. That's hate. And that's where we are.
And Dr. Charles, while we agree that our names are not a reflection of our ancestry, but some are saying that the context of the statement, how it came across, or the motives of the statement is what is being brought into question.
You want context and motive?
Yes.
To distract from the nonsense and the idiocy that is taking place. You have accusations of a pedophile ring. That is fundamental. What is a name compared to that? When I go home and they attack my home, they bandage me and interfere with my wife in front of my face, and you telling me about a name? My name is Rodney Atchison Desmond Charles, and that is not an issue. And who want to make it an issue, let them deal with that. I will deal with the fundamental issues that face me, so that my grandchildren who live in Trinidad could be as good as my grandchildren who live in England and their cousins who live in the United States. That's my only concern at this time. All of that is a P&M distraction. They do it with Emailgate. They wanted to tie me up with some pink-head man that I never see your hair. No,
Yeah.
They're good at distraction. And we as a population have to say, what is our concern? We want, you want, and I want Trinidad and Tobago to be the best country in the Western Hemisphere. And when you tell me about my name and how I inherited it, I won't entertain that conversation to those people who are interested in that.
We have another question.
With regards to the money from the bond, was there any other explanation by the government as to what these monies were used for by them?
The monies from the bond were held according to the document in two banks, First Citizens Bank and Republic Bank. A different amount of money and so on in US dollars. What the government did is they went to the bank and they, like a robber I guess, they wanted the money. They went to the bank and said, give us that money, we are entitled to it. The bank said no. The bank's lawyers looked at the situation and said, no, Mr. Government, you are not entitled to that. They went to the court and somehow convinced a court that they're entitled to that. Now there's a next matter. We have to investigate when did they go to the court. What evidence did they submit? Did they lie again to a courthouse? So that they went back to the bank and they grabbed the money and they run. When they took the money, they claimed that they spent the money on the highway. That's what they're claiming. We don't know that. They allege that they spend the money on the highway. So the money is spent out. Typical, you rob somewhere, you spend out the money. Robbers don't save. So they rob the money, spend out the money. Now when the London ruling comes out and say, okay, now you will pay that $93 million retention and bond. They have no money. They claim. And that is the issue. But the banks initially, I want to repeat, the banks initially refused the government. The banks with their corporate legal advice refused the government and said, no, you can't take that money. Not with what you bring in it. They went to the court somewhere and convinced somebody. We don't know. We don't know the legal course of that. I said before, I repeat, this involves over $150 million of legal and professional fees. This thing was fought in London with Queen's Counsel, with professional, what you call expert witnesses, and not just witness, expert firms. There are firms. That is real money you have to get. They did it with the Namalco matter. They brought a firm from England to measure sand and the density of sand somewhere in Barrackpore and thing. The court threw it out. So the issue here is that those bonds were held by NIDCO, and NIDCO now has to return the money to OAS. NIDCO don't have the money. I'm sure they don't have any money. So they will now try to go to the court in violation of their own undertaking to see what they can do. And everything will be a secret. Rest assured, everything will be a secret until the UNC expose them. Bare. That's it.
Yeah, right. I just want to, there's something in today's papers which says Rowley, opposition undermining CARICOM. I thought I dealt with that when I said that my antecedents are from Barbados, I'm from Antigua, I'm from Bermuda, and my children and grandchildren are all over the world. In fact, all my cousins on my maternal side are in England, Canada, United States. What we said in Parliament was that we welcome our CARICOM brothers and sisters, but not at this time, when we are undergoing difficulties for our own citizens to get employment. And I want to give the analogy, and I'll do so very briefly. There was a time I had 2 of my children in Canada, and every cent of my income I used to go and send to them in Canada. Go collect my salary, go to the other points, and swift send the money to them. If some friends wanted to come home and drink and have a good time, say, Charles, I could not afford to entertain them at that time. It is not that I hated them. It is not that I disliked them. And they understood that at that time, my priorities were to see about my children's education rather than entertaining them in my home. It is the same thing. We in the UNC are CARICOM citizens first and foremost. So tell Dr. Rowley, do not cherry pick my information and give a false narrative that the UNC is in any way undermining CARICOM. We reject that. It is nonsense, and it is the PNM pension for distorting reality and cherry picking information, as my colleague pointed out with respect to the arbitration judgment with the OAS.
Anything else?
That's it. Thank you all very much. One question?
Yeah, after.
Oh, sure. Okay, well, thank you all very much. We just want to thank the listeners, viewers, for tuning in this morning. We hope that we have been able to shed light on some critical issues facing the country. And on behalf of MP Charles, we ask you to tune in again tomorrow night, Monday, at 7 p.m. for our Monday night meeting. And some very important issues, including that matter involving the Attorney General, would be dealt with tomorrow night by the political leader, the Honorable Kamla Prasad Bisesa. Thank you and good day. God bless.
Monday night you go get more in all your tail. The Kamla Prasad Bisesa troops coming in. She coming in, she's an Indian. She coming with the Chinese. She coming with the African Tobagonian Jerlin. She coming with the lion from Orapuch, the Dogra. Everybody, Monday night, 7:30 p.m.